Have you ever wondered why almost every successful investor says the exact same thing? Not that becoming a millionaire changes everything, not that buying your first house changes everything, but reaching your first $100,000 changes everything. Why? What makes that number so different from every other financial milestone? Because once you understand what happens after your first $100,000, you'll stop thinking that building wealth is all about working harder, and you'll realize it's actually about reaching the point where your money finally starts working just as hard as you do. Part 1. Why the first $100,000 feels almost impossible. If you've ever tried saving or investing money, you already know something that nobody likes to admit. The beginning feels painfully slow. You work every week, your paycheck arrives, you pay rent, you pay bills, you buy groceries, you fill your car with gas. Maybe you invest a little money at the end of the month, then you check your investment account, and almost nothing seems to have changed. After an entire month of working, your portfolio might only be a few $100s larger than before. It feels disappointing, not because you're doing something wrong, but because your money simply isn't large enough to create meaningful growth yet. This is exactly where most people lose motivation. They start believing that investing doesn't really work, or they convince themselves that investing only works for rich people. Some people even stop investing completely, because they feel like they're making no progress at all. But here's what most people never realize. Nothing is actually broken. You're simply experiencing the hardest stage of building wealth. Think about pushing a heavy car. When the car isn't moving, you have to use almost all your strength just to get it rolling. The first few seconds require the greatest effort. But once the car begins moving, keeping it moving becomes much easier. Building wealth follows almost the exact same pattern. Your first investments don't grow very fast, because almost all the progress comes from your own paycheck. Every dollar inside your portfolio was earned by you, not by your investment. At this stage, you are doing nearly 100% of the work. Your money isn't helping very much yet, and that's exactly why reaching your first $100,000 feels so difficult. Because before you reach that point, you are still carrying almost the entire weight by yourself. Part 2. The moment your money starts working for you. Here's the mistake almost everyone makes when they first learn about investing. They expect their investments to make them rich immediately. So every few weeks, they open their portfolio, they look at the numbers, they calculate the gains, and then they feel disappointed, because nothing exciting has happened. But that's because they're looking at the wrong thing. In the beginning, your paycheck is still the biggest contributor to your wealth. Imagine you're investing $500 every month. During your first year, almost all the growth comes from the money you're adding, not from investment returns. Your portfolio is simply too small for compound growth to make a noticeable difference. That's why the journey feels slow. But something interesting begins to happen as your portfolio gets larger. Your investments slowly start generating returns of their own. At first, those returns seem tiny. Maybe they only cover a dinner. Maybe they only pay for a tank of gas. It doesn't feel impressive, but every single return stays inside your portfolio. And that's where the magic begins. Those returns become new investment. Then those new investments begin earning returns too. Now your paycheck isn't the only thing growing your wealth anymore. Your money has quietly joined the team. This is the moment that changes everything. Instead of one person building wealth, there are now two, you and your investments. Every month your paycheck continues adding new money. At the same time, your existing investments continue producing more money on their own. Eventually, those returns become larger, then even larger, until one day, you notice something that once seemed impossible. Your portfolio grows by more money in a year than you personally contributed. Think about that for a second. You still work the same job. You still receive the same paycheck. But your investments produce more wealth than your own savings. That's the turning point successful investors talk about. Because from that moment forward, building wealth no longer depends only on how hard you work. It also depends on how hard your money is working beside you. And that's exactly why the first $100,000 is so important. It isn't just another financial milestone. It's the point where your investments begin transforming from passengers into powerful engines that help carry your financial future. Part 3. Why the first $100,000 is more than just a number. Most people think the first $100,000 is special, simply because it's a big number. But that's not the real reason. If someone suddenly handed you $100,000 today, it wouldn't automatically make you financially successful, because wealth has never been about reaching a number. It's about building a system. The first $100,000 represents something much bigger than money. It proves you've built habits that most people never develop. It proves you've learned how to earn consistently, how to spend responsibly, how to ignore unnecessary distractions, and most importantly, how to keep investing even when the results feel slow. That's why wealthy people don't celebrate the number itself. They celebrate the person they've become while reaching it. Because by the time someone builds their first $100,000, they're usually making completely different financial decisions than they were years earlier. They no longer chase every new investment trend. They don't panic every time the market falls. They don't spend every salary increase on a bigger lifestyle. Instead, they think differently. Every paycheck becomes another opportunity. Every market crash becomes another chance to buy quality assets at lower prices. Every year becomes another step toward long-term freedom. That's a completely different mindset from the average person. The average person asks, "How much money do I have?" A wealthy person asks, "How many assets are producing money for me?" That single difference changes everything. Because cash eventually gets spent, assets continue producing value. Imagine owning a small fruit tree. During the first few years, it barely produces anything. You water it, you protect it, you wait patiently. Some days it feels like nothing is happening at all. But then one season, the tree finally begins producing fruit. From that moment forward, you no longer receive rewards only because of your effort. You begin receiving rewards because of what you built years earlier. Your investment portfolio works exactly the same way. The first $100,000 is like planting and growing that first healthy tree. It takes patience, it takes discipline, it takes consistency. But once it's fully growing, it keeps producing value long after the hardest work has already been done. And that's why experienced investors become obsessed with reaching this milestone, not because it's the finish line, but because it's the point where the journey finally begins getting easier. Part 4. Why most people never reach the first $100,000. Here's something that surprises almost everyone. The biggest reason people never build their first $100,000 has very little to do with how much they earn. Of course, a higher income can help, but income alone has never guaranteed wealth. If it did, every doctor, athlete, celebrity, and lottery winner would stay rich forever. Yet history shows us the opposite. Many people earn enormous incomes and still end up broke. At the same time, millions of ordinary workers quietly become financially independent without ever earning extraordinary salaries. So what's the real difference? It comes down to one decision that's repeated over and over again. Every time income increases, most people immediately increase their spending. A better salary becomes a better apartment. A better apartment becomes a newer car. The newer car becomes more expensive vacation. Then come luxury subscriptions, designer clothes, the latest phone, a bigger mortgage, a more expensive lifestyle. None of these purchases seem dangerous on their own. In fact, they often feel like rewards for working hard. And that's exactly why they're so difficult to notice, because lifestyle inflation doesn't happen overnight. It happens one small upgrade at a time, until one day, your income has doubled, but your bank account still feels exactly the same. Every extra dollar disappears as quickly as it arrives. That's where the first $100,000 quietly slips away. Not because you couldn't afford to invest, but because every raise found a new place to be spent instead. Wealthy people make a completely different decision. When they receive a raise, their first thought isn't, "What can I buy?" Their first thought is, "How much more can I invest?" They allow their investments to grow faster than their lifestyle. While everyone else is upgrading liabilities, they're upgrading assets. Year after year, that gap becomes larger. Their income grows. Their investments grow even faster. And eventually, their assets begin producing enough returns to buy the things that other people are still working overtime to afford. That's the hidden advantage. Building your first $100,000 isn't about living a miserable life. It's about delaying a few unnecessary upgrades today, so your future self can enjoy complete financial freedom tomorrow. And once you understand that trade-off, You stop seeing investing as giving something up. You start seeing it as buying a life with more choices, more freedom, and far less financial stress. Part 5. The simple system that gets you to your first $100,000 faster. By now you might be thinking, this all makes sense, but what should I actually do every month? The good news is, building your first $100,000 doesn't require a complicated financial strategy. In fact, the simpler your system is, the easier it becomes to follow for years, and consistency is what wins this game. The first rule is simple. Pay yourself before you pay everyone else. The moment your paycheck arrives, a percentage of it should immediately move into investment, not after paying every bill, not after shopping, and definitely not if there's money left at the end of the month. Because let's be honest, for most people, there's almost never anything left. That's why wealthy people remove the decision completely. They automate it. Every payday, money automatically moves into investment before they even have the chance to spend it. No emotions, no guessing, no trying to predict the perfect time to invest. Just the same habit, repeated every single month. The second rule is just as important. Don't interrupt the process every time the market becomes scary. Many beginners make the same mistake. When prices go up, they're excited to invest. When prices fall, they suddenly become afraid. Ironically, that's exactly backwards. Market declines are often the moments when quality investments become cheaper. Wealthy investors understand this. Instead of running away, they continue buying, because they're thinking about the next 20 years, not the next 20 days. The third rule is surprisingly simple. Increase your investments every time your income increases. If you receive a raise, don't spend all of it. Let part of that raise strengthen your future instead of your lifestyle. Even a small increase can make an enormous difference over the next decade. And finally, be patient enough to let compound growth do its job. The first few years may not feel exciting. Your portfolio won't double overnight. There won't be dramatic changes every month. But that's exactly how real wealth is built. Quietly, consistently, year after year. Because the goal isn't to get rich quickly. The goal is to build a financial system so strong that one day your investments begin creating opportunities your paycheck never could. And once that system is running, every month becomes another step toward financial freedom, instead of simply another month of paying bills. Part 6. The real secret behind every wealthy investor. At the end of the day, the first $100,000 isn't important because of the money. It's important because of the momentum. Before you reach that milestone, it often feels like you're pushing your financial future uphill every single month. Every dollar you invest comes directly from your own effort. Your paycheck does almost all the heavy lifting. But after enough time, something remarkable begins to happen. Your investments slowly start carrying part of that weight, then a little more, then even more, until one day, you realize your portfolio is growing even while you're sleeping. Not because you found a secret investment, not because you became a financial genius, but because you stayed consistent long enough for compound growth to finally become visible. That's the lesson most people never learn. They spend years searching for the perfect stock, the perfect business, the perfect investment strategy, when the real advantage has always been consistency. Wealth isn't usually built by making one brilliant decision. It's built by making hundreds of ordinary decisions that all move in the same direction. Every payday you invest, every unnecessary purchase you skip, every market crash you survive, every year you stay patient. Those decisions may seem small on their own, but together, they completely transform your financial future. That's why the first $100,000 changes everything. Not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because you've built a financial machine that no longer depends only on your time. Your money has finally learned how to grow itself. And once that happens, every future milestone becomes easier than the one before it. The second $100,000 usually arrives faster than the first. The third often arrives faster than the second. Not because you're working harder, but because your assets are now working alongside you. That's the true power of investing. You're no longer trading every hour of your life for every dollar you earn. You're building something that continues creating wealth, long after today's paycheck has already been spent. If there's one lesson I want you to remember from this video, it's this. Don't become obsessed with becoming a millionaire overnight. Instead, focus on reaching your first $100,000, because that milestone isn't just another number. It's the point where your financial journey begins changing in ways most people never expect. Start small, stay consistent, ignore the noise, and give your investments the one thing they need most: time. Years from now, you'll probably look back and realize the hardest part was never investing. The hardest part was simply staying patient long enough to let the process work. If you found this video valuable, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more simple, practical finance videos every week. And before you leave, let me know in the comments, what's your biggest financial goal over the next 5 years? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.